What's up, y'all? Welcome back or welcome to Practice. I'm your host, Coach Rees, and on today's episode, we're talking about the power of authenticity. I'm looking forward to growing with you, so let's get it. And around here, we're not practicing to be perfect, we're practicing to make our best self habits permanent. So before we jump into practice today, today's quote is, why be a carbon copy of somebody else when you can be an original of yourself? Again, why be a carbon copy of somebody else when you can be the original of yourself? This quote is so basic yet fire, because why be a copy of somebody else when you were literally born to be the original you? But I think that's why it's so hard, is because oftentimes society tells us that us being us is not maybe original or not good enough or not worthy enough. And I think that's the power behind it, is we hear cliche terms, like we hear cliche quotes like this one, but if we don't affirm it within ourselves, if we don't have a village that affirms it around us and tells us that you are enough, you are worthy of being you, you are good enough, then of course I'm going to want to be a carbon copy of somebody else who has already been approved by the world, right? Who's already been approved by society, right? Who's already been approved or deemed beautiful or lovely or fun or whatever characteristic it is that you are trying to copy from somebody else, right? So why be a carbon copy of somebody else so you can be an original? Well, because they've been approved and it seems as if you haven't, right? So it makes complete sense. But today I want to talk about and encourage you that in order for you to be confident, in order for you to live out your purpose with confidence, you have to be authentic. You have to authentically be you. You have to be the you that you were created to be, because there's no way that you can be confident in being you. There's no way that you can be confident in living out your purpose with confidence if you are not anchored in being the you that you were created to be. So as we jump into practice, I really want to hone in on how being yourself is the most powerful thing that you can decide to be. Now hear me when I say decide, because our quote literally tells us that you have a decision. Like, you don't have to be you. You can decide to be somebody else. You can decide to be a carbon copy of another person. But the power is in you choosing to be you. And when you choose to be you, you choose to be yourself, that's where you're able to tap into all the power that you were born with, and all the power that you have the ability to access in order to be your best self. So today's episode inspiration is coming from the one and only Tracee Ellis Ross. She did a movie a couple years back called The High Note. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But there's a song in there, and I never really heard her sing up until this point. Like, I know her mom sang, but I didn't really know that she sang. So anyways, the song is called Love Myself. Come on, right? Like, love myself. And here's what she's talking about in the song. She's basically describing the journey, right? The journey of becoming herself, but really ridding herself of all of the ridicule, the perceptions, and trying to develop the courage to really love herself. But the sentence the bar I want us to hang on to is, she says, I don't really care if anybody likes me. I just want to love myself, love myself, love myself. Okay? I don't really care if anybody likes me. I just want to love myself. Now, I firmly believe if we are going to get to the root of being able to plant the seeds that allow us to produce the fruit of being our best selves, you have to, hear me when I say this, you have to be able to say, you know what? I don't really care. Not necessarily if anybody likes me, but I don't really care if the wrong people like me. Like, I don't really care if the people who like me only like me because I have to be somebody else. Like, if you only like me because I acted a certain way, or you only like me because I fit your idea, or you only like me because I was the version of you that you needed me to be, then I don't really care if you rock with me. Because if I have to deny me, I have to deny the root of me, I have to deny the core of me, then in order for you to like me, I can't do it. Like, if I have to shape shift, I have to become somebody else, I have to take off my inner self, I have to deny my own boundaries, I have to deny my values, I have to deny me in order for you to like me, you're not worth it. You're still worthy, but you're not worth it for me. Two very different things, right? Who you are as a person, very much worthy, right? I can't say that because you are worthy, but you are not worth my peace. You are not worth my boundary violation. You are not worth me denying and going against my values and my goals and my principles if I have to shape shift who I am in order for you to accept me. You ain't worth it. You may be worth it for somebody else, but I'm anchored and you ain't worth it for me. And I think a lot of us really have to get to that point to where we say, you know what, like I'm done allowing myself to be somebody else in order so somebody else can like me. Where if we can really get to the root and say, I'm going to be me. I'm anchored in being me. I'm anchored and committed to falling that much more in love with me. And the energy that I pour into me is going to attract those who are supposed to be around me. So I don't care if anybody likes me. I don't care if you don't like me, if you don't like the changes, if you don't like the way I'm going, you don't like the way I'm growing, you don't like the fact that I love me. Because some people, I'm getting a little off topic right here, but some people only like you when you don't like you. Some people only like you when you don't like you. Because then what happens is a lot of people will see you start to loving you. A lot of people start to see you starting to like you and feeling yourself. You know what I'm saying? That Beyonce and feeling myself. And they'll be like, right? But you got to remember though, the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. And if you have to deny you in order to grow your number of friends you have in your group, then that is the last and one of the worst things that you could do. So as we jump into our practice focus right now, we're going to hold on to 4 different aspects: authenticity, self-love, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness. Okay? Authenticity, self-love, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness. Now let's hop into these practice drills, y'all. You need to know that being authentic is a journey. And it's not just a journey at the beginning when you start. It's not just a journey when you first decide. Being authentic is a journey forever, because as you change, you change. And so this is why we're talking about this a little bit later in practice, is why self-awareness is so important, is because the more you stay in alignment with yourself, the more you stay self-aware in what's going on with you as you continue to change, you're gonna find out, oh, I don't like that no more. That doesn't align with me anymore. That doesn't match my values anymore, right? That's not who I used to be anymore, right? And so that's why staying self-aware is so important, but it's a journey, because as you grow, you are growing. As you grow, you are shedding. As you grow, you are no longer the you used to be. And so as you start this journey of authenticity, you have to remember, number one, to be flexible. You have to remember also that because it's a journey, that there will be ebbs and flows, right? Things are gonna, you might not, you still gotta figure some things out, because you're becoming a new you daily. You are transforming and renewing your mind on a daily basis. One of my favorite quotes, and that probably should have been the quote of the episode, and Jay-Z talks about, you know, nobody works hard to stay the same, right? So the authenticity journey, you are working hard to continue to be your best self, right? You're working hard to continue to present who it is that you want to be in your most authentic self. And that is going to always cause some friction in some way, shape, or form, depending on where you're at, depending on your environment, because you may rub somebody wrong, right? So there's going to be some friction that you feel, because growth requires friction, right? But at the same time, you have to remember, nobody works as hard to stay the same. The next thing that you need to know about your authenticity journey is it requires humility. Hear me again. Your authenticity journey requires humility. And the reason why it requires humility is because, 1, you can't be self-aware without humility. 2, you can't fully be authentic and pure without humility. Because humility, remember, is our anchor, right? Humility really allows us to sit and say 2 things, right? Humility is not a location, okay? You can't, I struggle with the coming from humble beginnings, because humility itself is not a location, but it's a heart posture, right? So if I know that humility and being humble is at the anchor and the root and the foundation of who I am, it allows me to see 2 things. Number 1, it allows me to know, here are my strengths. Here's what I'm great at. Here's what I'm really good at. Here's my craft. Here's my purpose. Here's the areas that I can excel in. Here's how I can add value. But it also says, number 2, I've got some flaws, right? I've got some mess ups. I've got some hiccups. I've got some chips. I've got some, different things. Like, I'm imperfect. Here's all these areas I can grow in, right? So humility is, how I like to describe it, is a clear, organic, even, balanced view of self. Right? It's not just, here, I'm amazing, but it's also not, oh, I'm not great. It's not thinking less of yourself, but some people like to say it's thinking of yourself less. but I also don't really necessarily think that's it either. I just think that it is a balanced view of who you are, right? There's the good and the bad, right? Because we're human. So being humble is saying, man, I don't know. Being humble is saying you have the ability to admit you don't know, right? You have the ability to admit you have so much more to grow. You have so much more to learn. You have so much more to give. There's just more. It's a never ending journey. But it really takes humility, because connected to humility is humiliation. So if you ever heard me talk before, you know I'm really in love with the hums: humility, humiliation, and humanity. And that's really what authenticity is, right? It takes humility in order for me to say, I am going to choose to be myself, right? And a part of being myself is saying, here are all the great things about me, but here are all the other things that, like, here are my flaws. Here's where I'm not, that great at. Here's where I can grow. And here's where other people can add value to me, and here's where I can add value to them, right? That's that humility. The humiliating aspect, though, is not everybody's gonna like you, right? Not everybody's gonna like that authentic you. So you have to be able to be humiliated, or be willing to be humiliated, right? For being willing to be yourself. Because we just talked about it a minute ago, right? Not everybody's going to rock with you in the way you want them to rock with you. And so if you're gonna believe that you are committed to being on this journey of being your authentic self, you have to know that as you continue to, figure things out, work things out, you gotta be willing to be humiliated. But the people who are going to humiliate you, that's gonna be, here's what's so dope, is the people who are going to humiliate you while you're on the journey of becoming your best self, that right there tells you they're not for you. So really you can say, you know what, y'all? Thank you. Because if you're willing to humiliate me while I am doing something that requires courage and bravery and confidence in order for me to try to be my best self versus trying to be a carbon copy of somebody else, and somebody has the audacity to humiliate you while you're trying to be you, they just told you right then and there, they're not for you. Period. So really they did the work for you. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, right? You are putting in action and getting on the journey of being your best self. And anybody who is going to look at you and demean you and make you feel bad or humiliate you for trying to be you is telling you exactly who they are, and it's your job to believe them and say, you know what? Thank you. I needed that. So now you're being your best you, and you were able to weed some people out of your life who didn't need to be there anymore, right? And then you're centering humanity. Your humanity matters. Period. Your humanity matters, right? So the journey of growing in authenticity is going to take three things. It's going to require humility. You're going to experience some humiliation, but it's important for you to center your humanity. The other thing about authenticity in this journey, when it comes to humility, is having the mindset of knowing I'm not better than nobody else. So when you are anchored in humility, it allows you to continue to strive to be your best self, right? Without thinking or striving to be or thinking you are better than other people, right? So that humility keeps you anchored and grounded and allows you to center humanity at the same time. So you can fully invest in being your best self without feeling like you have to demean other people in the process. So what is authenticity? Authenticity is really you being able to be who you were born to be. And only you know that, right? So you'll never be able to really discover or live out being who you were born to be if you're not curious about yourself first. So I'm going to ask you to get curious about you. No matter what age you are right now and you're saying like, I don't really know who I was born to be. And I'm not talking about purpose right now, right? I'm talking about you. I'm talking about your personality, your character, your values. Like, who are you? Who was the person, the human being that you were born to be? Who is your authentic self? Because it doesn't matter if you're pouring into all that physical self-care if you don't even know yourself. Because then you're not taking care of yourself. You're just taking care of the temple that you're in without really being able to take care of the internal you, right? The root of authenticity really comes from knowing thyself. Knowing thyself. When you think about authenticity, it's the ability to know thyself and to be thyself. And this is what is really hard, is because a lot of times we don't know thyself, which prevents us from being able to be thyself. But that's really the root. And what's really dope and why authenticity is a superpower or the most powerful thing that you can be is because you are most effective when you are you. Because when you show up as being yourself, you show up as being your best self, that's when all your gifts have the ability to come to the forefront. That's where all your strengths, that's where all your knowledge is, all your capital that we talked about, your human capital, cultural capital, psychological capital, every form, every aspect and gift and power that you have has the ability to rise to the front because it's no longer suppressed by you trying to be somebody else. And so authenticity is the most powerful thing you can be because it's also when you're most effective and when you're the most confident. So there's a saying, I'm sure you've heard it before, is fake it till you make it. And I cannot stand it, right? Because I can't be fake and real at the same time. Like I can't be like sort of kind of fake, because if you're fake, you're fake. It just is what it is, right? So don't fake it until you make it, be it until you see it. So as you are on this authentic journey, or as you're on this journey of becoming your most authentic self, which is your best self, which is your most confident self, you cannot fake it until you make it. You need to be it until you see it. So being it is me saying, if my authentic self feels like this, talks like this, walks like this, acts like this, then feel, walk, act, talk, and be it. And then eventually the see it part is you'll eventually see yourself acting in those ways and be like, that's what's up, I see you. But the other thing is other people will see you too. So you don't have to fake it until you make it, just be it. Be intentional about being the you that you want to be. Be intentional about being the you that you want to see. So be intentional about adding in the habits, right? If your best self goes to the gym every day, go to the gym every day. If your best self doesn't talk a certain way, stop talking that way, right? So it's kind of like we talked about a couple episodes ago, where you kind of have to just do it, but kind of you do have to just do it. Because here's why. We've talked about this before. Neurons that wire together, fire together. So if you tell your brain, this is what I do, right? You're giving yourself the freedom to be who you are and say, my best self does this, right? My most authentic self desires to do this, then I need to take that action. When you take that action, you're creating that habit. You're creating that, that system within your brain that says, we do this. So as you grow in being your most authentic self, you really just simply have to apply it and just do it and be intentional with it and then be consistent with it. So don't fake it until you make it, because if you're faking it, your brain is confused and you're causing cognitive dissonance. But if you will be it until you see it, you're allowing yourself to walk in freedom and organic development of being your most authentic self. Now we're talking about self-love, and I firmly believe in order for you to be your most authentic self, you gotta be able to love yourself, right? Like I think there is a deep reverence that you should have for you, a deep sense of admiration and pride and joy for being who you are. And I know not everybody is at that space yet for a multitude of reasons, but I think the root of really being able to live out your purpose with confidence, the root of being able to be your most best self, authentic self, is your ability to love you, your ability to rock with you, right? Going back to our song of the day, right? Is I don't care if anybody likes me. I just want to love myself, because you have, I believe, a deep desire. We all have this deep desire within us to love us. So if it's, I want to love me, and if I have the ability to love me, then that means like when I open up whatever can of joy that is that says I love me, that allows my most authentic self to be set free. And I just see butterflies coming out of this can right now, but it's like whatever aspect in your heart physically is suppressing your ability to love yourself, I believe that means you're not allowing yourself to be your most authentic self, because if you don't love you, you're not allowing you to be you. That means you're not being your best self. That means you're not being your most authentic self, because there's something about you that you don't rock with. So you're not being the you that you were created to be. You're not living out your purpose with confidence. You are being a carbon copy of somebody else, because there may be a fear that says, if I'm really me, if I'm being my true self, my most authentic self, then that must mean that I lost my train of thought. I ain't even about to edit this part out. Sorry guys, that sucks. Oh man. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, look, flaws and all, I'm gonna keep it running. But what I'm trying to say is that I believe that there are so many people out here in this world who are trying to be carbon copies of other people, that don't have the courage to be their best selves, to be them, because the world and society has told them who they are is not good enough. And whether we're talking about from a racial stance, ethnicity stance, nationality, or we're talking about gender and sexuality, or we're talking about accents, like there's so many levels and ways that we can break this down. That society has told you that you are not good enough. So if society tells you that you're not good enough, and you internalize that, especially from a young age, right? If at a young age you are not seeing representation, from a young age, if you're not being affirmed, from a young age, if people aren't lifting you up, then you're gonna say, well, then I must not be worthy, right? I must not be good enough. I must not be as beautiful, right? The society is going to give you so many reasons as into why you shouldn't love you. And right here, right now, I'm asking you to bump society. Right here, right now, I'm asking you to say, you know what? I'm going to start the journey of loving myself, regardless of what it takes. Like right here, right now, I'm committing to falling in love with me. And I say that with the biggest smile on my face is because I went through that journey and it feels so good. And you are so worthy of being able to go on that journey. And I also know what it feels like to not rock with me. I know what it feels like to be like, I ain't it. I know what it feels like to try to fake it till you make it. I know what it feels like to be partially. I know what it feels like to show up half. I know what it feels like to desire to really be your most authentic self, but to feel as if you won't be accepted, right? And that hurts. And this is why my heart breaks for everybody who feels like they don't have the ability, the space, the freedom, the courage to be their most authentic self. So one of the things, in order for us to be able to go on this journey of growing an authentic self, is also being able to say, I am going to let go of FOPO. We talked about this last week. FOPO is fear of other people's opinions. In order for you to grow in self-love, you have to dodge. You got to dodge, right? Other people's opinions. There are certain people whose opinions matter, and you're going to find this out while you're on this journey, right? Those people who are in your village that rock with you, those are the ones who are not humiliating you. Those are the ones who help keep you humble, right? Like those are the ones who you really do life and center humanity with, right? But there are some people whose opinions, I'm cool. Your opinion's irrelevant. Because you don't know me, you don't do life with me, right? So in order for you to really grow in self-love, one of the things you got to do is you got to isolate just a little bit. Not a whole lot, but you have to isolate yourself just a little bit to get very clear on your voice, to get very clear on whose voices are these that I'm even hearing, right? Whose voices are these that I'm affirming? Whose opinions of these, that, like, where did they even come from? You have to get clear on the voices of the fears of those opinions. Who are they? Are these people that I do life with anymore? Did I ever do life with these people? Like, why was I trying to be somebody else in order to appease this group of people, right? So in order for you to be able to grow in that self-love, you got to isolate yourself a little bit. So, and for a little bit, right? Maybe 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, maybe go on a personal retreat or something like that, just for you to get very clear on learning your voice. Right? And this, you got to think about this. Like if somebody important to you was to call you right now, it doesn't matter who it is, and you didn't look at the number, you could pick up the phone and be like, oh, hey, so-and-so. You would know that, you would know their voice without even looking at it. This shows how old I am, right? Because I hold the phone like this versus like this. Anywho, but you have to get that clear. And I'm kind of, again, jumping ahead to self-awareness, but this is what all this is in alignment. And I really want you to catch this. I need you to know your voice. Know your voice. Know whose voice is behind the thoughts that are in your head. A part of self-love is connected to self-talk. And we'll talk about this in the future, but in order for you to love you, you have to make sure you're talking to yourself the right way. There are certain things that you would never say to people that you love, but you would say them to you. And my question is why? There are certain ways I would never talk to people that I love. I wouldn't do it. But would I say it to me? And that's the thing, is we're willing to not talk to other people a certain way, but we're willing to talk to ourselves that way. We're willing to not demean others, but we'll demean ourselves. So that's where you really got to check yourself and say, am I really walking in self-love? If I'm not walking in self-love, there must be a piece of me that I'm denying, which is preventing me from being my most authentic self. So I need you to get to the root of that today and figure it out and really stake a claim and saying, I am going to go on this journey of being my most authentic self. And that also starts with how I talk to myself, how I think about myself, so that way I can be my best self. The ability to love yourself requires you to decide to go on a journey of being your own best friend. It makes me think about Me, Myself, and I, where Beyonce is like, me, myself, and I, all I got in the end is what I found out. But from now on, I'm gonna be my own best friend. And a lot of times, you have to get to that point, and that's where I'm talking about that isolation, right? I'm not talking about it kind of from the negative connotation point where she got hurt and now it's just her. I'm saying you can do this from a positive stance, from a constructive stance, and saying, me, myself, and I need my me, myself, and I time, so that way I can figure out and learn how to grow and be my own best friend. So that way I can make sure when I'm talking to me like I'm talking to my best friend, right? When I think about me, I'm thinking about me as if I'm my best friend, right? Like, you are growing an intimate relationship with you. You deserve to have an intimate, happy, whole relationship with yourself. That includes love and accountability. Yo, so I'm about to wind this practice down. It's gotten a little bit longer than what I desired it to be, and I got a whole lot more to share on this subject, so we can dive into emotional intelligence and self-awareness and what that really means for us to be our most authentic selves, our most powerful authentic self. So what I'm going to do is part 2 is going to be on episode 5, dropping next week. So part 2, episode 5, dropping next week. We're talking about emotional intelligence and self-awareness. But before we close this out, I got to give you your 3 skills so that way you can apply, that's going to help you grow and be in your most authentic self. Number 1, this one is probably always going to be in everything, right? Because YOU-ISH stands for intentionally seeking healing to in turn secure your health, and you cannot have healing and health without getting to the root. So number 1 is get to the root of the discomfort of the idea of loving yourself, right? And this isn't on some fake like type stuff. Like, think about it. Like, do you really love you? Do you really rock with you? Do you really do you find yourself talking to yourself in ways that you would never talk to anybody else? I need you to get to the root of that. And whether it's physical things about yourself that you may not like, whether it may be characteristics, or get even deeper and really look at who is your character? Are there things about your personality that you're just like, I've never really liked that about me, and figure out why, right? Or do you feel like sometimes you don't have the right boundaries up, and so you always get violated, so you end up being a people pleaser, and you're like, I'm tired of being a people pleaser, right? And you have to shift it and get to the root and figure out, I do this and I don't want to do this anymore because this literally feels like it's against who I am. And we're talking about more of this when it comes to self-awareness in next week, part 2. But I need you to get to the root. This is the skill. So this is go wherever you need to go in your me, myself, and I time. Sit down, get a journal, whatever it is, and write down and get to the root of the discomfort. Why do I feel this way about me? Whose voice is behind this feeling for myself? Where did this come from? And if it's yours, then apologize. If it's yours, ask for forgiveness and say, you know what, self, I apologize. And then, you know what? Start to build that relationship with yourself back up the same way you would with any other person, right? Because what you're doing is you're discovering how to become your own best friend and have the intimate relationship with yourself. So number 1, get to the root. Number 2, start getting to know you better, right? If you are growing on a journey and you know, today, I'm not who I was a week ago. I'm not who I was a year ago. I'm not who I was last quarter, right? Start to get to know you. Get curious about the things that you like or you don't like. It's almost like do a purge. You know, when that spring cleaning, or you go in your closet and you're like, I don't even wear this stuff anymore. Spend some time with you in a way that allows you to start to get to know the new you. Ask yourself, is this quality, is this habit, is this thought process still in alignment with the person I am today? If it's not, we got to get rid of it. But again, it's like a habit, so you have to actively get rid of it and then replace it with what you need now. So spend some time with you so that way you can start to get to know the you are now, and then the you it is that you want to be in the future. Number 3, kind of similar to number 2, but I really want to hone in on this word, grow in with you. right? Before you fall in love with anybody, you gotta like them first, right? So before you even say, Coach Rees, I'm not even trying to fall in love with me. I ain't got no space and time to be loving. You may, right? So grow and like first, right? Growing and like with anybody takes time, right? So think about, when can I spend quality time with myself? If I can spend quality time with myself, and quality over quantity, you may be like, I'm with myself all the time, it's me. That's a quantity, right? Like that's a lot. Obviously you wake up with you, go to sleep with you, but how often are you really with you? How often are you just sitting and doing nothing and allowing your brain to wander and get curious and enjoy the freedom of rest and living in that restful part of your purpose? Okay, so get to like you. Before you can get to love you, you gotta like you first. And a lot of us don't even like us. And here's what happens: when you don't like you, that energy permeates through you onto other people. And that's the unfortunate part, is your disdain for you, your dislike for you ends up impacting other people around you. And so it's really important. The world depends on you being able to like you. But you got to build that foundation. You build that foundation by being curious, by spending quality time with yourself, right? And really saying, what do I like? And do more of those things that you like. Do less of things that you don't like. Keep promises to yourself, because this is really going to help you and enable you to be able to grow in your like and eventually your love. Because the more quality time you're spending with you, right, the more deeper you'll be able to grow in that like and admiration and eventually that love you have for yourself. All right, y'all, so we done came to the end of practice. We're talking about how powerful authenticity is, and how at the root of authenticity takes humility, right? The journey of authenticity takes humility. It's gonna require some humiliation, but you gotta make sure that you're centering humanity. But it really takes growing in self-love, and without self-love, you can't be confident. And without confidence, you can't live out your purpose with confidence, and you won't be able to be your most authentic self. So thank you so much for joining in, for being here with me on another episode of Practice. I'm your host, I'm your coach, Coach Rees. If you want to talk further about these concepts, you have any things that you want to talk about, you want to deep dive, you want to break down, hit me up. Slide in my DMs, throw something in the comments. I want to grow with you regardless of when you're watching this video. And I really, really want you to remember that you are worthy of loving yourself. You are worthy of being your best self. You are worthy of being your most authentic self, regardless of what society may say. I believe that, and hopefully you believe it too. This is Practice, the space where we are intentional about developing the habits that our best self activates and lives in. You are worthy of being you. You are worthy of being your best self. You're worthy of living out your purpose with confidence. I'm your host, Coach Rees. Until next time, peace.